Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today, we are joined by Lindsay and Peter, who are going to discuss their open adoption. They actually have a pretty unique situation where they have openness beyond just the birth parents, and they're going to talk to us about what it's like to have open adoption with extended birth family. So welcome, Lindsay and Peter.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Hello.
To start with, can you just share with our audience just a brief overview of who you are, when you were placed, what year, just to give like a time frame of where you're at with things with open adoption?
Sure. We were placed a little over a year ago with a family based in Connecticut. We're in New Jersey. It's been a fun time, but it's been a busy time, as you can imagine. A lot of change has happened in the last 12 months.
Sure. And were you placed through like a pre-planned situation, or was it an emergency placement in Connecticut?
It was pre-planned. So we were connected with the expectant parents, both the expectant mother and the expectant father, in May of last year. We had our match visit in early June, and our daughter was born 3 weeks later.
Well, that's just like the perfect scenario. That's kind of what we hope for in the adoption land, just so that everybody has a moment, even though it's not super long, but you were able to kind of digest being matched. You were able to have a pre-placement visit with the expecting parents before child was born. You had a participating birth father. These are all great additions to an adoption plan, and I'm happy to hear that you had all of that. So that's good news.
It was just enough time for us to be able to do some planning, to get a car seat, to have a place for her to sleep, but not so much time that we started to really stress about all of the things that we didn't have time to do.
Sure. Now, at the time when placement happened, were the birth parents together in a relationship, or were they not, and just kind of navigating this as co-parenting folks who are making an adoption plan?
The latter. So navigating together, they've got a very good relationship. They're friends, but they're no longer in a romantic relationship.
Before placement happened, had you guys discussed what type of open adoption everybody was comfortable with? What was kind of the structure of what the future contact would look like with birth parents or anybody else who may have been part of that equation?
So I think when we were coming into the adoption process, one of the things that attracted us about Adoption from the Heart was the focus on an open adoption. We certainly didn't know, what that could possibly mean. We were open to, and talked about this a lot with our social worker, that we wanted to be open to whatever the birth parents or the birth parent was comfortable with. In our particular situation, we learned during that pre-placement meeting that it was actually our expectant father's mother who saw our profile, sent it to the expectant parents and said, I think you should look at this one.
Yeah.
And so at that meeting, we had a meeting with expectant mother, expectant father, and father's grandmother called into the meeting. And so we had an opportunity to speak with her then. And she let us know, I'm the one that picked your profile first. And so I think we knew at that moment that open adoption was going to be open. And I think that that's sort of what we were hoping for was, sort of best case scenario was that our daughter would grow up knowing that she is absolutely surrounded by lots and lots of people who love her. We had a really ideal situation from there.
First off, I have to just applaud you, Lindsay. Your adoption language is so wonderful, how you're saying expecting parent versus birth parent at the time of pregnancy versus after birth. You clearly are knowledgeable with adoption language. So I just want to say thank you, because not everyone is.
I watched a lot of Adoption from the Heart TV as we were going through the process. We obviously went through all the educational classes, and our social worker, Jackie, has been amazing in supporting us through the whole process. So,
speaking of education, Peter, when you kind of went into this and now you have had a pre-placement meeting, you obviously became connected to the expecting parents and some of their family members. Like, what were you envisioning? Was it what you expected it to be when you first came to the agency? Was there ever any moment of like, I don't know if this is for me, or did it just feel very real and organic and made sense for you and you were looking forward to it?
Definitely the latter. I'm the type of person who kind of evaluates people as people. So I'm not a family versus human who aren't family kind of person to begin with. So open adoption and to me, I view it as bringing other people into your family in the same way that your friends or your, actual family or whoever, right? Co-workers, there's all kinds of people that make a family. So I was open to that idea from the beginning. I think, to Lindsay's point, we knew right from the beginning that grandparents were going to be involved, and we're excited about that because, who doesn't need more grandparents, right? That's like the best thing ever for a kid. So that happened pretty organically, and it's looked very much like, I think, what we expected that it would, right? The grandparents are doting, the parents are engaged. We use the app, so we post quite a number of pictures and everybody comments and things like that. So that's been good. And it's good to have they ask different questions, if you will, right? Like you can see that they're going to function as different people in our daughter's life, which is how your parents and your grandparents and, how these people work. So it's a nice, I think it's a good setup. And then, obviously we have people on our side, aunts and uncles and grandparents too. So, it's just this gigantic mass of humans who are all focused on this baby. So it's kind of fantastic.
I think one of the nice things that we didn't realize, obviously going into it, is that our daughter actually has an aunt who lives about 20 minutes from us. And so even though there's this 3.5, sort of 4-hour gap between us and her birth parents, she does have a biological relative just down the road.
Pretty close.
And we've had an opportunity to connect with her and text and meet up in the park for visits. So again, just to the point, more people in your life who love you. If that's the worst thing that's happened to you, then you're living a pretty great life.
Lindsay, so I have a question for you. What would you say to folks who are maybe struggling with this concept of like opening this contact beyond just the birth parents? Like, we've had some families who really struggle with it, and they feel like, well, we came into this thinking open adoption was about having contact with birth mom and birth father, and anybody beyond that is not really what we signed up for, and it may be an interference in their life to have more relationships, more personalities, more people that you quote unquote have to deal with. What would you say to that in response to why you see this to be working for you and your family?
I definitely hear that. I think I struggled with it in some respects myself. We had this vision that, the adoption was going to be open and that people were going to be a part of our life and our daughter's life. And that's certainly what we wanted. I think we were sort of caught a little off guard, if I can be honest, when it was written into an agreement, just because our position has always been open is more. And it didn't even occur to me that it would be something that we would need to formalize. But I can certainly understand from the biological family's perspective that they also don't know what this relationship is going to look like.
Sure.
They want to be involved, and if there's anything that they can do to kind of preserve that. So I think it's taking a step back. And for me, not ever wanting to have a conversation with my daughter and having to explain to her why there were different rules for the biological family than for my family. How do I look her in her big, beautiful brown eyes and say, the reason I kept you from your family is because of my insecurities or my challenges? It just wasn't a conversation that I ever want to have with her. It's not always easy. There are personalities and things to manage, of course, but that comes with Peter's family and my family.
Everybody's family.
Again, just didn't want to have a different set of rules or a different set of expectations. If it's okay for my mom to drop in, then it's got to be okay for all of our family.
Wow. I've been doing this many years, and I will tell you, Lindsay, I have never heard that terminology before. And that is so true and so powerful. How can I look my child in the eyes and say, there's a different set of rules for your biological family versus us? And I mean, that's so true. That's a really powerful statement. And I've never heard that before. That's really, really good. Thank you. I'm like in shock. I really like that. That's so valuable to what we're talking about. I know, Peter, you mentioned that you use the app. Are you referring to the 23 snaps?
Yeah. Yeah, we found that to be a really great way to, especially when you have a broader group of people, you can just post a picture or just post, this happened today, just some little quick thing. It takes 5 seconds. Everybody's got access. They can engage with it in their own time. It's, it hasn't been a downside for us, but something to consider with a bigger group of people is that the scheduling ends up being a little weird at times, right? So the app allows us to focus. That is one thing that we do, I think, pretty consistently. Our focus is on the birth parents first. Of course, grandparents, aunts, uncles, great, everybody's involved. But when we have our scheduled visits, we make sure that the birth parents are there, right? If one grandma or the other grandma or both or an aunt or whoever wants to tag along, that's great. But our focus is on the birth parents first. And then from there, any additional, as Lindsay mentioned, we met with our daughter's aunt, one afternoon, local, that's fine. But the app is a good way to sort of bridge all those different gaps, and everyone gets the same level of engagement, right? Everybody has the picture, everybody has the story, so then you don't have to manage as many relationships, right? You have to manage the app and, whoever your solid person is, right? It's different in every situation. But yeah, it's been really great. We were able to, obviously there are the obligations set forth in the contract for when you have to communicate, but we've well exceeded that because we have that forum there. It's just very easy to do.
Well, and I know sometimes like when future contact is legally binding, which some of our states allow for and some of our states unfortunately don't, it can be a little intimidating to families. Like, okay, now you want me to sign on the dotted line that this is a legal agreement, not just with birth parents, but with extended birth family, right? Because it's a commitment you're making for the love of your child and putting her best interest first before anything else. And that's important. Talk to me about boundaries, because I know some viewers may watch this and say, well, this seems like too much for us. Like, do you have any sort of boundaries in place for just like general safety and just certain things are private and whatnot? Do you feel like you're able to maintain that boundary with birth parents in a way that works for your family?
I think honestly, it hasn't been an issue. And I think it's something that I was, worried about as we were leaving the hospital. What have we signed up for? But it's been a lot more natural and a lot more organic. As Peter said, it's 3:00 in the morning and you're doing a night feeding. It's so easy to sort of take a picture, post it, update, with a couple of sentences. We have a group of people who just want to love her, but also respect our respective roles. And so sort of understand that there's this village of love, and we're just all trying to navigate our way forward. So I would say we haven't, it's been a year, we haven't had any boundary issues, but as I said earlier, I really just try to manage it. And if it's okay for my mom, then it's got to be okay for everyone else's mom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We haven't shared addresses or anything like that.
Sure.
But we have shared phone numbers, and we haven't, and we've even gone so far as to say, if you want to do a FaceTime or something, but we haven't gone into that yet, right? We have the app, we have the visits, we have a number of visits a year, and we've talked about it loosely, like, oh, we'll connect, but it to your point, it's very organic. It becomes, everyone's got their own lives and their own things going on. It just becomes very
That's
natural.
fair. I would imagine I would have a different view if we had birth parents or birth grandparents who were calling every day.
Calling all the time or whatever. Yeah, so too, once a year, what you were saying, like, we haven't had that.
I think it's important for everyone to remember that just like you guys have your perspective, your fears, your thoughts on this, so does the birth family, right? So like for them on their side, they may be feeling also like, how are we going to navigate this? What is this going to look like? And I think that's why, as an agency, when folks ask us like, well, what is this going to look like? I need to know specifically, how is this relationship going to happen? You know, there's some level of, well, listen, guys, you just have to jump in like you would in any relationship and kind of learn the other side and navigate what's comfortable for you, what's comfortable for them, what's in the best interest of the child. Like, it's all navigation. And if we sit there and try to dictate what it should be, then it just won't feel organic and real. And it sounds like for you, everybody's comfortable because you're being honest, talking about what you want out of this, and it's working. And even though it's only been a year, I foresee this only getting stronger for you, because usually that first year can be the tough moment of like, what is this going to look like?
I think that point is so important. I remember when we had our first conversation with our expectant father's mother during that pre-placement meeting, and she said, this would have been my first grandchild. And so to sort of hear that loss, I think just really cemented for us that, you know, we get every single moment of every single day with her and really need to prioritize and focus on the members of the triad who don't have that access, and anything that we can do to facilitate and sort of navigate those feelings of loss is, I think, something that felt really important to us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for recognizing that, because I think so often people are focused on themselves. I mean, it's only natural, especially when you are a prospective adoptive parent, you're in this process to become parents, right? And that's always the goal. But there's other layers to it. And the fact that you saw it firsthand from your expecting father's parent saying to you, listen, this is me being vulnerable and saying this would have been and is my first granddaughter.
It is your first. And I think our takeaway, I was like, wait a minute.
You're like, no.
She hasn't gone anywhere.
Yeah.
She is your first granddaughter. And that is something, as a first granddaughter, that's special. And nothing that we should be doing here should interfere with that feeling.
We have to always honor and respect feelings too. And it is a loss in some degree for folks who choose adoption, whether you're a birth parent or a birth grandparent or an aunt or whomever. There is some sense of loss because, as you mentioned, they don't get to see her every day and be involved in all of her first moments of life and things like that. And the fact that you can understand that position shows how much you not only respect and understand open adoption, but you love your child, because you know what that will look like down the road when she's able to understand the doors that you left open for folks to come through. And that's really valuable. And oftentimes extended birth family is left out of the equation. And I think when you hear from those folks and you hear from birth parents that talk about the role that their parents or their partner or their loved one or whomever played in their life, especially during placement, how could you not care? How could you not want that person to be involved in your life and your child's future? But I think that's why we love having interviews like this, because the words you're saying are so powerful. And the fact that you're living it and seeing it and feeling it, we want our community to recognize that, because open adoption is so different today than it was years ago. And I think today it's not about trying to reinforce connection to birth parent. It is about connection to extended family and recognizing that it goes beyond just that. So you guys are living it, and we really appreciate you giving us an overview of what your lives are like and just your hearts and where you're at with all of this. Is there anything else you wanted to add, either of you, that you want our community to know, or something you feel like maybe you wished you knew when you were going into this process?
I think I would say everybody says this, but it's true. It's been a year plus, a couple of weeks. It feels like it's been 3.5 minutes. I think going into it, we spent a lot of time, and I spent a lot of time doing that, trying to anticipate, how does some of these things work? And the truth of the matter is you've got a baby. It doesn't, you're not going to think about any of that stuff. You schedule the people go, you assess people for who they are, obviously. safety and things like that. But then it's like, right, you're just having a family meeting every so often, and you post pictures, and the rest of the time you're chasing around a newborn. So it doesn't, I think
to change a diaper.
Right. Yeah. I think we probably both thought like there's going to be some time to focus on some of these other things. But the truth of the matter, it's not even a daily discussion point in our house. We are always telling our daughter about her family. And, we have these people have read stories to her and recorded them. Right. So we like play the stories. So that's always there. But this management of the relationship.
Right.
No.
Right.
It's not a daily thing. It doesn't. I think we may have good partners on the other side.
We have excellent family.
Just there's all the rest of your life is still happening. So it's not the outsized thing, that you think it might be.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate your time and your openness to sharing your story. I think that your words are powerful, and I'm hopeful that our audience can better understand the importance of extended family and open adoption. Tune in, guys. We hope to see you all soon. Take care.